Le Nissan Kick-Play 2025 a beaucoup de plus. Apple CarPlay intégré pour jouer vos tunes préférées, des fonctions avancées de sécurité, un rendement énergétique remarquable, puis même la petite odeur de char neuf qu'on aime tant. Tout ça en plus pour moins. Le Nissan Kick Play 2025 est le véhicule neuf le plus abordable au Québec. Achetez-le à partir de seulement 22 774 $, incluant un rabais à l'achat comptant de 2 600 $. Profitez de cette offre avantageuse chez votre concessionnaire dès maintenant. Jusqu'au 2 mars, des conditions s'appliquent. Détails chez Nissan.
On Monday, Canada's Transport Minister Omar Alghabra announced a proposed overhaul to Canada's passenger rights charter. It laid out measures to tighten loopholes, to close some loopholes, I should say, to traveler compensation, and added some stricter penalties. But the announcement has earned mixed reviews from passenger rights groups and from the airlines. Let's talk a little bit more about the changes that are being proposed here. Omar Alghabra joins us, Canada's Transport Minister. Minister Alghabra, welcome to the program.
Hi, Elias. It's great to be with you.
So I know whenever the Transport Ministry does something on this issue, I know that passenger rights groups immediately say the rules aren't strict enough, aren't tough enough, won't actually stop the problems here. I'm hearing those complaints already from passenger rights groups. What's different this time? Why is what you're doing here different from attempts in the past?
Elias, this is an important issue for Canadians. Last summer and the Christmas after that, we saw our travel system, our air sector get stressed, and we saw the regime that we have in place to protect passengers' rights expose some vulnerability. And at the time, I promised Canadians that we're going to take a hard look at the lessons learned from that period, and we're going to implement those lessons, and we're going to improve the system that we have. And as you said, yesterday I announced that these new rules, and that you asked me about the changes.
I asked you what's different this time around because passenger rights groups it always happens. Like they come on this program, Minister Alghabra, and they say it's not good enough. I'm already hearing it from them. They're saying, you know what, this is six of one thing, half a dozen of another, but it's the same thing. At the end of the day, it won't change anything. So how do you respond already to those complaints from passenger rights groups?
Sure. Let me just say some passenger rights groups were applauding the announcement, including the CAA, the largest in the country. I understand some people's skepticism. I do. People are, have seen bad experiences and they want to see tougher rules. I understand that. And one of the reasons why some people are still skeptical is because some of these measures are going to be implemented through the regulatory process, which is the next phase after the legislation passes. So they're skeptical about really what's going to happen in the second phase, and they're not taking my word for the fact what we're going to do in the second phase is going to be tougher. But I'm here to tell you and reassure you that Canada's system, after these changes pass, will be the toughest in the world. It'll be tougher than the Americans. It'll be tougher than the Europeans. And it'll ensure that Canadians' passengers' rights are protected.
Okay, so you say tougher. A lot of other people would say just more bureaucratic. And I want to try and find out if it can be both, because when there's more bureaucracy, a lot of times it leads to slowdowns here. So you're now at about 45,000 complaints, a backlog of complaints right now. How do you ensure if you're going to go with even tougher rules that you don't add a bureaucracy that makes that list get longer of Canadians waiting for satisfaction?
Elias, I am pleased to tell you that this new proposal is going to be a lot less bureaucratic, and let me explain to you why. Because we're making sure that airlines have a mandatory obligation to pay the compensation the moment the passenger files a claim, and we're closing the loophole on what the airline can use as a justification for not paying customers compensation. And if, let's say, for one reason or another, the airline decides not to pay, we're now ensuring that the Canadian Transportation Agency has a much faster, smoother process. So, for example, it used to the obligation of the CTA used to be 120 days to settle a complaint. Now we're saying it's 90 days. The airline used to have 60 days to respond to a complaint. Now it's 30 days. And now we're reversing the onus to the airline, and we're ensuring that CTA has bigger fines in case the airlines are found in violation of the rules. So I would argue it's actually a lot less bureaucratic, it's more efficient, and it's sharper and tougher on the side of the passenger.
We're with Canada's Transport Minister Omar Alghabra. We're talking about a revision to the passenger rights charter here. So in the past, we had disruption categories as loopholes for airlines to get out of paying things. Now the Canadian Transport Agency is going to draft a list of exceptions for compensation. Tell me about that list. That list has not been drafted yet, and how do we make sure that the list of exceptions doesn't get so long that we end up in the same place as before?
I agree with your sentiment, Elias. First, let me just say we used to have 3 categories. We're eliminating these categories, and we're reducing it to one category, which is extraordinary circumstances. And I'll tell you some of the examples that the category now we're eliminating. We used to allow airlines to justify not paying a compensation under safety concerns. But we found out that some airlines were saying because of labor shortage, because of them not having enough staff, they justified not paying compensation because it was safety. And we're saying that's not acceptable. The airlines are responsible for managing their resources, including their human resources. And if they're unable to find enough staff, then they're responsible for that. So we're eliminating that loophole. And now we're using just one category, which is extraordinary circumstances. And that, to your point, will be defined through regulatory process. And yes, there will be consultation with consumers advocacy and airlines. And we will make sure, and it will be public. So you and your listeners can all participate in this discussion. But let me be very clear. The intention here is to reduce the exemptions, not expand them. And then we're going to be very explicit and very clear as to what the airlines are responsible for. But we also need to remember, we can't hold airlines responsible for snowstorms. I think Canadians understand that and expect that. That's an example of an extraordinary circumstances. But I just want to add to this, Elias. What we're also introducing, though, is a new service standard. So even when something extraordinary happens that are outside of the airline control, the airline will still be responsible for a minimum standard to provide service to their customers, including perhaps providing food or any other necessities that a passenger is expecting.
There are some people in the airline industry that are saying with these new rules, if they are indeed as tight as you're saying here, it will lead to one thing, an increase in the cost of air travel, right? So ticket prices will go up as airlines try and make sure they can cover having more staff for every situation so they don't get dinged with these penalties here. If we end up with a system where ticket prices are more expensive, but when the worst happens, passengers are better protected, will this be a success for you?
First of all, I disagree with the premise, Elias. I mean, I don't understand why the airlines are saying we're not holding them responsible for more than what they promised their own customers. We're not asking them to do something beyond what they obligated themselves to their customers. So what this will mean is that airlines will work harder to ensure that they deliver what they promise their customer. And if they do that, and the airlines that do that will be successful, and that's how the marketplace dynamic works. Airlines that find a way to reduce grievances will be able to be competitive and successful, and airlines who end up with many problems maybe they will raise their prices, but they'll lose customers because other airlines are doing much better than them. So for me, it's a success is the reduction of number of complaints and disruptions and creating a competitive marketplace for the airlines and for passengers.
Minister Alghabra, while I have you here, I want to ask you one question not related to airlines. I want to ask you about high-speed rail or lack thereof. it seems like the calls from everyone and anyone on this issue, Windsor, Quebec City, rail corridor, it's local politicians, the companies that make trains themselves, everyone's saying that your plan for high-frequency rail and not high-speed rail is the wrong plan. And people are pining, and I've still not spoken to a single soul, whether it's opinion-based or any other type of interview I do on this program. I've not spoken to anyone who isn't in favor of true, real, high-speed rail. Why are you still on the high-frequency train?
First of all, Elias, I love the fact that everyone is engaged on this subject because this reflects how important this project is and how essential it is. And I am honored to play a part in delivering this dream to Canadians. Second, look, we have, I don't know why people are taking yes, are not taking yes for an answer. We have a public policy objective here, which is connecting communities and ensuring that we have a convenient transportation alternative for Canadians. And so what that means is that we need to make sure that we connect communities that have not been connected for a while, including Trois-Rivières in Quebec. Second, we will look at high-speed options. We are now in the process of seeking expertise and partners from the private sector to see how they can help us implement that. In fact, the RFQ, the request for qualification period, just ended last Friday or Monday, and now we're seeking partners to work with us on doing that. So we are looking for options that could include high speed. So I'm excited that everyone is interested in this project. Everyone has an opinion, and I am looking forward to implementing this project because I know it's going to solve so many problems.
Omar Alghabra is Canada's Transport Minister. Minister, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Elias, thank you very much.